Disneyland is known as the happiest place on earth. But for a few, it's also a place of strange and disturbing happenings. This week, we're sharing 2 stories that will make you wonder if Disneyland is truly the happiest place on earth, or the scariest. This video narration may include elements that some might find disturbing. Viewers and/or listeners' discretion is advised. Hi, my name is Lucas, and welcome to Enigmatic Episodes, where we delve into the most spine-tingling stories from the depths of the internet. Each week, we select a topic and tell our listeners 2 hair-raising stories about the subject. One is a chilling creepypasta, a tale that may or may not be true, while the other is an alleged true account, based on well-documented cases or news reports, which we present in a gripping narrative format. Details about the stories will be provided after both stories are finished. If you're interested, grab yourself a snack, coffee, or beer, and sit tight as we guide you through hair-raising stories that will make you question what's real and what's not. Our first story for this week is called Mr. One Way. I was heartbroken after my girlfriend of 5 years broke up with me. I was a mess, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I usually drank myself to sleep, and sometimes I would stare at nothing for long periods of time, thinking about her. One day, I decided to go to Disneyland. I figured that if anywhere could help me find happiness, it would be the happiest place on earth. I walked around for a while, rode some rides, and ate some food, but nothing seemed to help. I was still thinking about Jenny. I continued to stroll through the park until I saw Space Mountain. I had always wanted to ride the roller coaster, but Jenny was too afraid. Now that I was alone, I figured I could finally have the chance. The line was long, but I didn't mind. I was eager to try the ride. As I waited in line, I found myself staring off into space again, thinking about Jenny. When suddenly I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around and saw a man standing there. He was tall with reddish-brown hair. "Hello," he said. "Hi," I replied. "I couldn't help but notice that you look a little down. Is everything okay?" he asked. "Yeah, I'm fine." "Let me guess," he said with a smirk. "A girl?" For some reason, I smiled. "Yeah, how'd you know?" "I've been through a bad breakup myself, so I can tell." "Really?" I asked. "How did you move on?" He just smiled. "Breakups are never easy. Do you want to talk about it?" For some reason, I started telling the man what happened, and the funny thing was, he actually listened. "Word of advice, give yourself some time, focus on the things that make you happy, and never give up on life." "That's good advice," I said. "I'll keep that in mind." "I'm sure you'll get through this," he added. Finally, it was my turn to ride. I turned to the man and asked, "Do you want to ride with me?" "Sure," he replied. We sat down in one of the cars and the ride started. As the lap bar locked, I turned to face the man and asked, "So, how long did it take you to move on?" He didn't answer. I shrugged it off and tried to enjoy the ride. As the ride progressed, I was actually starting to have fun. Just before the part where you can see stars, I heard the man's faint voice. "I never did." As soon as the ride exited the tunnels, I turned to my shoulder to ask the man his name, but he was gone. There was no one sitting beside me. I was alone in that car. I thought that was weird, and I was concerned that the man might have fallen out of the car or something. So I told the staff about it. They stopped the ride's operation and checked everywhere, but didn't find the man. I insisted that there was a man riding with me, so they checked the CCTVs to see what happened. When the staff got back to me, they said that I had ridden the ride alone. The only thing that looked out of place was that I had been talking to myself while I was waiting in line and during the ride. I was more confused than ever. I didn't know what to think. Had I really imagined the man, or had something more creepy happened? I'll never know for sure. But I'll never forget that day at Disneyland. Did you like our first story? We would be grateful if you could help us out by smashing the like and subscribe buttons. Your support would mean the world to our small channel, and we promise to continuously improve our content to keep you coming back for more. So thanks in advance, and now let's get on to our next story. Our next story is called I Work Security at Disney World. I work in security at Disney World, the happiest place on earth. Typically, I wouldn't say where I work, as obviously there are some pretty strict rules about things employees can put online, but I just don't think I can tell this properly without that context. And honestly, I think this may be it for me anyway with this job. I just can't see myself working here any longer now. I've been with the company for 23 years. The first 20 years I worked in the parks, nabbing shoplifters and rounding up people who were drinking too much for the heat. Occasionally there'd be a fight to break up, but people usually kept it pretty mild. The heat and walking was getting too much for me the last few years, so I asked to be transferred somewhere with AC, and the company moved me to one of their resorts. While the working conditions were 110% better as far as climate and comfort go, the guest issues were trickier. Mainly domestics. I guess the expensive and stress of vacation got to a lot of people, and I'd be called by neighboring rooms because some mom and dad were yelling at each other. I'd try to suggest they take a nap or go do separate activities for a bit, and that would usually calm them down. But none of that is what I'm here for. I've got to get this out while I have time. 3 days ago, I got a call from management. Apparently, a couple of days before that, housekeeping had went into a room that should have been turned over that day. Turned over is when one guest leaves by about 11 a.m. and the next guest checks in around 3 p.m. and all of the guests' items were still in the room. Housekeeping made a note of it and moved on, but during the next 2 days when they entered the room, everything was still there and untouched. I went to check it out, and sure enough, there was an empty room full of luggage, clothes, snacks, some toys, everything a family would need for vacation. The manager had already looked up the previous reservation, and it was for a family: dad, mom, 2 little kids. I tried to call the phone numbers they had given, but all I got was voicemail. We were a bit stumped, so I made the call that housekeeper could clean the room and take the family's personal items to be held until we got in contact with someone. I went digging into the reservation more. The family had arrived 5 days before housekeeping discovered all of their stuff. I found that the family had paid a parking fee and their vehicle description was listed. A quick walk of the parking lots and I had easily located their vehicle. So that ruled out a car accident or them deciding to just leave all their stuff behind. Next, I saw that they had bought a dining plan. This is when a guest prepays for all of their food. They're given a certain number of credits to use for meals. This family had only used 3 credits, and the last one was 2 days after they checked in. It appeared that the day they arrived, they got here late and probably just stayed on the resort. The next day, they used 2 credits at Epcot. The second park day, they used just 1 credit at Magic Kingdom, and it was at breakfast time. Now at Disney, we have something called Magic Bands. Magic bands are worn by the guests and act as a room key, park ticket, credit card, dining reservation payment, fast pass, a system used to bypass lines, and more. It took some work, but I was finally able to look up this family's fast pass history. The day they went to Magic Kingdom, they had breakfast at a restaurant in the park, rode a couple of rides, and then rode their last ride, It's a Small World, around 11 a.m. Then nothing. Finally, it was time to bring in someone else on this. I called an old co-worker at Magic Kingdom and asked him to pull security footage for It's a Small World at the time they wrote it, and I made my way over there. When I got there, my friend was very confused, almost distraught looking. He showed me what he found. There's usually a camera in the direction of where rides load and unload. The footage showed them scanning their bands to use fast passes for the ride and boarding the ride. The footage from the exit of the ride just showed the other people in their car exiting. They weren't there. Of course, we thought the worst. Maybe one of the kids had fallen out and Mom and Dad and the other kid got off in the middle of the ride to help, and they all got injured or killed or stuck in machinery somewhere. So we shut down the ride, middle of the damn day, turned off that earworm music and turned up the lights. Me and my buddy walked that ride 3 times before we called in help. Eventually, there was close to 10 cast members searching and we didn't find shit except for 3 cell phones and a hat. I was right stumped. I've kept digging the past couple of days, and I'm not sure who to tell what I found next to. I've called the police and I suppose they're on the way, but the company has a way of covering up things like this, and I decided I can't live with myself if I don't put out some type of warning. I kept digging into their reservation over the last couple of days, and today I noticed they had purchased Memory Maker. There are photographers all over the parks and cameras in a lot of the rides, and with Memory Maker, the photos are all free. They automatically get added to a guest's Disney account when the system knows their picture has been taken. And the system always knows. Everyone's whereabouts are always known with the magic bands. Well, I opened up their Memory Maker photo album and I swear there's 732 pictures. The first 30 or so are pretty normal. Epcot, a few rides in front of the castle, but the rest are all in It's a Small World. The rides only take 1 picture per go-around, so it appears as though this family has ridden this ride over 700 times. The first picture was pretty normal. Everyone looked happy. It was a busy day and a full car of guests. The next one is rough to look at. The car is empty except for this little family and they look so darn confused. The next 10, 15 I can see Dad getting angry, yelling. Mom is holding on to those 2 kids like her life depends on it, and you can see the kids getting increasingly upset, crying. And it goes on and on and on. After 50 or so, it looks like they're trying to get out. In one, the dad is missing. In another, they're all gone. Maybe like they've bailed early in the ride and tried to walk out, but in the very next one, they're all right back in that damn car. After around 450 or so, I only see the mom and kids. It's just when I look closely I can see Dad, maybe just his body now, slumped down in one of the other seats. Since about 675, there's just Mom and 1 kid, another body in another seat. The mom and kid aren't moving anymore. I think them 2 are still alive, just damn near catatonic, looking straight ahead, pale. And y'all, I swear on my fucking life, the dolls are moving or something. In some of these pictures I can tell they aren't where they should be. I even saw one with a doll in the car with this family. I can't look anymore or I'm going to lose my lunch. I closed the album. Its file size has increased since I closed it. God, are there new pictures being added? I see on security cameras that the local PD just arrived, so they'll take over soon. I wish I knew what the fuck is going on, but I also wish this damn thing had never landed in my lap. I don't think I'll be able to update this. After I talk to the police, I think I'm going to walk out of here and never come back. I just wanted to get this out there before Disney feeds the media some bullshit cover-up as to why a whole family vanished. They didn't vanish. I know where they are. I hope you like our stories for this week. Now let's dive into their details. The first story, Mr. One Way, is based on one of the infamous ghosts that haunts Disneyland, nicknamed Mr. One Way. According to reports, guests and cast members have seen a ghost on Space Mountain who is said to appear to single riders. Those who have seen the ghost describe him as a man with reddish hair and a red face. He is also said to be wearing 70s-style clothing. Mr. One Way is said to sit next to single riders when they board Space Mountain. However, he disappears before the ride ends. Thus the name Mr. One Way. Now, whether or not Mr. One Way is real, he is a popular legend among Disneyland fans and was even covered in the OC Register. There's also a video circulating the internet of his sighting. Here, let's watch.
In Disneyland, at Space Mountain, there is a ghost called Mr. One Way. He's known to jump on a ride with you if you're a single rider. Keep an eye on the left side of your screen, he's going to sit next to a gentleman. He's been described, there he is, he's been described as a red-haired and red-eyed being that kind of will talk to you in line and seem like a normal person, or sometimes just show up next to you, but always disappears before the end of the ride where they take your photo.
Personally, I'm not sold, but let's move on to the second story. So you might have guessed it, our second story. I Work Security at Disney World is a creepypasta from Reddit written by Disney Security, shared under r/NoSleep. Now I know what you're thinking. Creepypastas are just made up nonsense, right? Well, you're not wrong. But there's something about this story that's just off. For one thing, it's the only post that Disney Security ever made. They never replied to any comments, and they never posted anything else. It's like they created this account just to tell this story and then disappeared. Now this could be intentional to add more intrigue to the story, but there's also another thing. The story itself is full of details that make it seem like it could be real. For example, the author mentions specific details at Disney World that can only be known by Disneyland employees or security. He even talked about the security procedures in place at the park. We did some research and we couldn't find any reports of a family disappearing at Disney World. But we did find dozens of missing persons reports and even a few reports of people who went missing after riding It's a Small World. So what's the truth? Is I Work Security at Disney World a real story? Or is it just a well-written piece of fiction? We don't know for sure. But one thing is for sure. This story got us. It's creepy, and it's just a little bit too real. We just hope everyone is safe there at Disneyland and having fun. Thanks for tuning in to Enigmatic Episodes, and for lending us your ears as we shared these spine-tingling tales. If you have any suggestions for topics or stories, or if you have a real-life creepy experience of your own to share, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below or connect with us on our Facebook account. All of our social media links are in the description box. We value each and every one of our listeners, and we read all of your messages, so feel free to drop us a line, and we'll do our best to reply. That's it for this week. We'll be back with more spooky stories next week. Again, my name is Lucas, and you've been listening to Enigmatic Episodes. Thank you so much.